Endings are real hard, y'all. I wish there was more guidance out there for game masters for ending long-term campaigns. Because I'm about to end my Legend of the Five Rings campaign. It's been going on for about 2 years now. And we're bringing it to a close because one of the players is not going to be able to make it going forward. And so we have a limited number of sessions to sort of wrap up all the various storylines that are going on, all the plot threads, the character tensions, etc. And I've been struggling somewhat with figuring out what exactly to do. Because we've had some truly fantastic moments in this campaign so far. Genuinely some of the best role-playing moments I've ever had. Maybe top 5 all come from this campaign. I'm not kidding. It is that good. But that kind of puts a lot of pressure on me as a GM for coming up with character endings. I don't know if I can live up to that kind of hype, you know? And so I kind of wish that there was more advice out there for doing that kind of thing. Because, we could, if we wanted to, of course, say, hey, screw the rules. We're going to just do pure narrative for the next 3 sessions and just resolve everyone's ongoing character stories and plot hooks and everything like that. We're going to collectively decide how we want that to turn out. We could do that. I don't want to do that because then it feels like robbing the players of the abilities and the investment, the mechanical investment into their characters that they've made for the last 2 years. They're quite high level now. And to sort of take that all away feels wrong, feels incorrect. So I've got to do something mechanical. We can't just keep playing at our normal pace for 3 sessions because L5R tends to be a kind of a slow-paced game, we're on kind of a time limit on each session, we play for 2.5-ish hours a session. We don't get a lot done. In a single session, we don't really advance the story that much because there's a lot of stop and talk between rolls. The rolls do take some time to resolve. It's not like a quick snappy system. It's quite involved, and you could say that is a drawback of the system. I don't think it is. It just is what it is. L5R is still my favorite RPG, and this is genuinely part of it. The roles are designed to create powerful story moments. They are not designed to be resolved quickly. So we can't do either of those two extremes. Keep on keeping on, and we can't just, I don't want to just throw all the mechanics away. So we've got to find some kind of middle ground. And I've come up with a solution, and I don't think I necessarily need to go into all the details. But there's, the 2 aspects of ending a campaign, particularly a very long-term campaign like this. There's the mechanical aspect, and then there is the narrative aspect. Mechanical aspect, I think I've kind of figured out. And I understand why there isn't a lot of advice out there for this, because for the most part, you don't end a campaign with a time limit. We have a set time where after which we are not going to have one of our players. And so it feels unfair or it feels incorrect to have the game go on past that point. And I understand why most campaigns don't end that way. And so most campaigns don't need to be mechanically changed in order to accommodate the end of the campaign. So I understand why that's not out there. It would be nice if it were, but I understand why it doesn't exist. What I'm mainly thinking that should be out there, and I haven't seen at all, is advice on wrapping up character stories. Have you ever seen a TV show or a movie series that is really good, but it doesn't end well? and it kind of ruins the whole thing, you know. The quintessential example that people will throw around is, of course, Game of Thrones, which starts off based on Mr. R.R. Martin's novels, and then at a certain point they run out of source material and just kind of making up stuff as they go along, and it kind of shows, you know. I don't want that to happen, you know. I want to give these characters, I want to do them justice. I want to have satisfying endings, not necessarily all good endings or happy endings, because this is a samurai drama. Tragedy is a part of the genre, so a lot of them are going to be sad. You know, is what I'm getting at. A lot of them are not going to end up in a good position. But we do want to have, for us as an audience, because we are not just players, we are also the audience. We get to, we are doing these games to see how the stories unfold and what happens to these characters that we have come to love. And so it needs to be satisfying for the audience, while maybe not as satisfying for the characters, you know. And it needs to, like, actually feel like an ending and not just a, and then they kept on keeping on, you know. So it's interesting that I have not seen much in the way of advice in this regard, how to wrap up the story for a long-term character. I think a lot of it kind of comes down to the fact that I think the vast majority, like 90% plus, the vast majority of RPG campaigns do not come to a discrete conclusion. They kind of tend to fizzle out, you know, scheduling issues, interpersonal issues. The group falls apart or just kind of stops. And you don't get these, like, engineered endings for the story. I think it happens exceedingly rarely. This is, in fact, only the second long-term campaign that I will be ending as a GM, like saying, like, this is the end of the story explicitly. I did it once for Blades in the Dark, and then again now for Legend of the Five Rings. Blades in the Dark's ending was, I would say I would give myself a C rating on how I ended that. And I want better. I want better for this game. Not just because I think I have grown quite a bit as a game master, but also because this game is much more about, like, character development and drama. That game was more like shenanigans and adventures, you know. So anyways, I guess, I mean, is this a community call? Is this, I might be. So, like, if you know of a good repository of advice for this kind of thing, let me know. I would be interested in reading some material on how to end, because this is not just an RPG thing. You know, you got to think, like, you know, TV writers and novelists, they've got to know how to do this stuff. And, like, obviously it's going to need to be adapted to maintain, like, you know, player agency. I don't want to tell my players how their character stories are going to end, obviously. But, like, I feel like there's going to be a lot of transferable advice, a lot of broadly applicable wisdom about the way that stories are constructed and the way that we achieve satisfying resolutions to character arcs. That would be of interest to me. And I think so on the one hand, most RPGs don't have, like, a whole separate book for the game master. It's usually a section in the main book because you only get the one book. But in a game like D&D that has a separate book for the person running the game, I feel like it's a gross oversight that this kind of advice is not in there. Or at least it isn't that I've seen. Now, caveat, I have not read the 2024 DMG, and I'm not going to. It's not in the 2014 DMG, and as far as I can recall, and it's been a while since I've looked for it, it's not in the 4th edition DMG either. I don't think I've ever seen advice, or at least not very much or very good advice, in any D&D Dungeon Master's Guide book for this kind of subject. And like even just a couple of paragraphs in the GM advice would go a long way. Does Fabula have it? I don't know. Fabula Ultima might have something like this, because it actually dedicates a noticeable amount of like page real estate on villains and like end game bosses and that kind of thing. So I'm wondering if maybe there's something in there. I don't know. This is less of an opinion video, I suppose, and more of just a rambling, musing kind of video. But yeah, ending campaigns is hard. And I get why there isn't a lot of advice for it. I wish there was more advice for it, because it would be very useful for me right now. Yeah.